Welcome to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast.
Every week, they talk about the Vancouver Canucks with a fair amount of nonsense thrown in.
Sure, they're never the first with the news, nor the best connected, and definitely more off the rails than on.
But they've been talking puck the longest, and that counts for something, right?
So strap in for the longest running, best mediocre Canucks hockey podcast.
It's C4 with Chris and Anna.
And I have to ask you this. Have we been living a dream over the past couple of months, or is it a nightmare, or what is it that we experienced where PD was gone? We had, pieced out on Brock Boeser.
Yeah. Listen to our show over the last couple of months, listen to any Canucks podcasts, or read any Canucks article, Brock was gone. And suddenly, Brock was not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an interesting free agent frenzy if you happen to be a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. And I mean an interesting experience, not in the sense that, they did crazy things, though maybe that is the crazy thing that they did. But I outside of the whole, were they just trying to toy with us, play with our hearts, put on a show, it was so surreal that Brock Boeser was the big splash that the Vancouver Canucks made.
Yeah, Canucks got a new signing.
In free agency.
But the signing was Brock Boeser.
Yeah, and I'm not, just to make it very clear to our listeners, I'm not against Brock Boeser. I talked about this over the course of the, up to the trade deadline. I'm like, I wish there was a way the Vancouver Canucks could keep Brock. I wish that they could do this. But if they can't, I wish they got some value. They didn't. Oh, man. And then it was like, well, it sounds like they might try, but, everything that had been said, and it wasn't like you, me, or the media making any of this up. No, you had Rutherford, you had Alvin going out there, short of disparaging the kid.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
And
I think Brock was thinking until July 1st that he was also no longer going to be a Canuck. He said in interviews it's very unlikely he returns.
Mm-hmm. But guess what?
He's back.
Yeah, Brock Boeser. How long did we miss him? Not very much. Signed a 7-year deal with the Vancouver Canucks. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about everything else that the Vancouver Canucks have done into free agency. I was going to say free agent frenzy, but really the frenzy wasn't that much of a frenzy. Maybe that's a thing of the modern NHL. I don't know. Since we last recorded, a couple other deals were announced. We've totally signed them, but we can't quite sign them to an extension deals until the 1st. So that's what happened. Trade.
The draft.
Talk about that. The draft, yeah, the draft. The development camp that occurs immediately after the draft, and the run up Grouse Mountain. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into all that. But before we do, has your summer been so far, Anna?
Warm.
Yeah, we finally got to that point where the heat is on.
Yeah, the heat is very much on. The heat may have cooled off for now in hockey, but in real terms, it is very much on.
Yeah, it's only a month ago that you and I were talking about January. But
that passed.
It's odd,
very quickly.
It's odd to be talking about hockey in the summer. Granted, the way the NHL runs things, free agency hits on July 1. But summer's been okay for me. The heat is on. I'm not entirely keen on that. But yeah, I'm enjoying things, running my daughter to all sorts of stuff that she's in, waking up at stupid early hours in the summer just so that I can ensure that I'm done work.
That's good too.
To
Yeah.
make that happen. Yeah. Listeners can't see it. Maybe Anna could describe it, but my eyes are kind of baggy.
Oh, no, I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't have.
Oh, really?
No.
I feel so tired.
Okay.
I'm wasted.
I do think the heat really gets to you.
Well, that too.
I've had days where I'm just like, what did I do? Why am I so tired? And it's purely the heat.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to complain about it because 6 months from now, it'll be pouring rain. It'll be so cold, yet somehow not snow. And I'll be out on the soccer pitch coaching
Yeah.
my daughter. So,
Yeah. Enjoy the softball while you've got it.
well, that's over now.
Oh,
Softball
okay.
season's done. Yeah. Why don't we dive into Rewind? We're going to get into the trade later on, but I will share, for those of you who weren't aware, the Vancouver Canucks acquired former Vancouver Giant,
Yes.
local boy, Evander Kane. But again,
More on
talk
that
more
later.
about that later. What we wanted to talk about is all of the other pieces of the puzzle that sort of have fallen into place over the course of the last few weeks. So probably the most surprising
Yep.
contract extension. So there's a few surprises. The most surprising contract extension has to be that of Thatcher Demko. So the Vancouver Canucks, if you've been keeping track, decided that they didn't want to let Kevin Lankinen go, and they signed him to a pretty solid deal in the sense of what Lankinen was able to do over the course of this past season. That 1 year show me contract turned into a substantial raise and arguably a contract one might give to a starting goaltender, probably not a backup. And if I recall correctly, you and I then wondered at that point in time, does that mean that the Vancouver Canucks are no longer riding the Thatcher Demko bus? Well, the Canucks will now have 2 starting goaltenders signed.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking Demko. Like, if we get old Demko, healthy Demko, this gets you a really good deal.
Yeah.
Not so much the Lankinen contract, but the Demko contract. But now you have arguably 2 goaltenders who I think expect to start and are paid relative to what a starting goaltender would make.
Yeah. So, like, if we didn't say, it's $8.5 million per for 3 years additional. So we got 1 more year at 5. And Lankinen is 4.5 million per. So obviously there's a difference there. In seniority, like, even though technically Lankinen is a year older, but yes, in seniority, like, Demko definitely comes in at the top. The dues have been paid, etc. But yeah, you're definitely looking at a 1A, 1B. Like, not a starter backup. Do those exist anymore anyway? Less and less, I would say.
What, the 1A, 1B? Or
The starter backup, like the traditional... Like, there's varying degrees, but I just don't think there's really it's not so much common that it's, like, 60 games for one goalie.
But do you see, this is the thing, is that in those situations when you have the 1A, 1B, or, the 60-40, to me a 1A, 1B isn't a 60-40. That would be more close to 50-50. I guess 60-40, was splitting a hair here, but it just, to me, that's definitive. That's a little more than like the 1A option. Demko has signed a contract that can't be the backup.
No, and no one would expect him to be, but it's the case.
Lankin didn't sign the deal, though, to be the backup.
But he's not going to be the backup. Like, I think Demko, all we know about the future of Demko is that he's proven that he cannot take, a starter load. Like, he has to take, 50 games is too much, right? Like, we want to see him lower than that. So, like, I think it makes sense in a way. I think the question remains about Shilovs. Obviously, like, he's not gonna stay that much longer if he doesn't see a future.
Yeah. Well,
Like a path.
there is no future for Seeloffs. Like, let's be honest. Like, the Vancouver Canucks have themselves locked down to the tune of $13 million a season starting in 26-27.
Yeah.
You know, Demko and Lankinen, both of which have no movement clauses. So Seeloffs is, you know, not in the picture. The only thing that could maybe play into it is that, you know, Demko's deal does not kick in until 26-27. But if that were to be like if the Canucks are going to trade him, they're not going to trade a guy who's on the up and up with value. So what team is going to take, even at, albeit just for 3 seasons, an $8.5 million contract with a full no movement, right? Like that's the part that just sort of shocks me.
Yeah, I guess Canucks are banking. I mean, we've heard Olveen talk after the deadline. Like, the idea is so much went wrong last year and lots of stuff was glossed over. It was like injuries, etc. And I think they just want to get back to that sort of playoff team that they had the year before.
Run it back.
Yeah. And they feel they have the pieces to do that if everything goes right. But once again, that's a lot to bank on. And let's not forget that Demko went down in the playoffs. And we did have to depend on Shelovs.
Yeah. Anyhow, again, if Demko is, I was going to say better, is back is probably the better approach. I'm not upset at the deal. I have doubts.
Sure.
And that's not a knock about, you know, Demko's ability. His health has been the Achilles heel. Anyhow,
don't talk about his Achilles.
No, it's the Papaluti McDonald's Happy Meal muscle.
Yeah, the Greek name that none of us can pronounce.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could probably try to, but I just have way too much fun, making up different words every time I talk about it. The other extension that the Vancouver Canucks announced was Conor Garland. I think everyone and their best friend knew that Conor Garland was going to be extended if possible. I mean, it was more if the player wanted to come back, not so much if the team wanted the player. I like what Conor Garland provides to the team. Conor is getting himself a raise. He'll be making $6 million per through to 2032, and he's got himself an NMC on that for a few seasons before he gets into the whatever number of team no trade list. But there's the only worry that I have, and this is not so much a Conor Garland thing, but it's indicative of what the Vancouver Canucks seem to be providing, are NMCs. And they don't seem to be getting, I don't want to say discounts, but value for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we have been familiar with the giving out NMCs than like candy under the previous regime.
Like no trades, I actually have less issue with, X-team no trade lists. But when it's a full no movement, they're like, Conor Garland is a Canuck for 3 years. I hope Conor performs. Like, if Conor continues to perform, I'm not entirely upset. I know there were some out there like, oh, they overpaid it. The cap went up. It's inflation. Like, he's really only going up by about $1 million a year.
Which you would have to say here then, that raise.
Yeah, like it's not, to me, that's not unheard of. My issue is just
and honestly, like, a lot of these deals are ones that in isolation seem perfectly fine, but they kind of jar when you see them like holistically with everything the team already has done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
Conor's making more than Jake DeBrusk. Is Conor a better player than Jake DeBrusk? I think there's some out there that would say he is.
Consistency-wise, yeah, maybe. But, like, because Jake DeBrusk has always been a streaky player. So I think Jake DeBrusk at his best, you would think /hope that he is better than Conor Garland, but that's not been the case. Conor Garland's definitely been the more consistent player.
But Conor locked down, Thatcher locked down, and maybe that's what played into the fact that Brock Boeser, having
All the Americans
dipped his toes into free agency, decided that the offer from the Vancouver Canucks was the one he decided to sign. I dropped this in C4 Discord. I know I'm not the only one who's seen it, but Thatcher Demko, upon news that Brock was returning, was very complimentary of Brock.
Thank sweet baby Jesus or whatever he said.
That's right, yeah. There's the picture of Brock, Conor, and Thatcher all together.
American boys.
Mm-hmm. This one caught me by surprise. I honestly, like, when word had sort of started to trickle out, the Vancouver Canucks have turned around, have returned back to Brock Boeser. They're trying to work out a deal.
And I was thinking, good luck with that. Why would you, as Brock, say yes to that after the disrespect? And, like, we know that he was hurt by the comments at the trade deadline, and understandably.
He said as much after signing to come back to Vancouver. Like, this isn't us making it up or media speculation.
But it is funny, like, I really don't want to make light of this topic, but it does seem a bit like, a bad boyfriend that says he's changed. He was just waiting for Canucks to say sorry. Sure. Like, sorry, we've changed. And he said, okay, I'm coming back.
Coming back for 7 years. There was discussion about, he passed up 8 years by coming back to the Vancouver Canucks in free agency.
Yeah, he passed up 8 million with Vancouver, right? Because that was a 5-year deal. Term and stability. Clearly, that's important to Brock. You gotta stay loyal. You gotta say you love him and that you have changed and you value him.
I have a belief that Brock Boeser, as a player, has much more to give.
I
think
agree.
If the situation allows for him to flourish, and I kind of believe going into this next season, the situation will allow him to do just that. This is good value. I just hope it's good value.
Yeah.
Like the Vancouver Canucks in making this type of splash, what did they provide themselves? Well, they provided themselves a top line player and didn't have to break the bank to do it per se. I know there are some who suggest, Brock isn't worth this much money. I don't think there's anyone out there who looks at that contract and says that's not what other teams would have given him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And let's be clear, the market was not good. Everyone was looking for players. And there wasn't that much out there. At least at the price point Canucks can afford. So, like, getting Boeser to take a little bit of a discount for the term. And they are really just putting a lot of stock in players that want to be there. After what has happened in the last season, they kind of... Yeah, it does seem to be that if you don't want to be here, like, that's of no use to us. It's putting out a lot of faith in the chemistry and the passion, but... Yeah, I guess they're thinking, what choice do we have at this point?
Yeah. If we think about the Vancouver Canucks needs, though, with the presumption that Brock Boeser was going, the thought was, the Vancouver Canucks will need to find some form of secondary scoring. And on top of that, they're short some centers. So that would be a nice thing to address. Seems that every NHL team wanted a center. Most wanted two.
Yeah.
The Vancouver Canucks got how many?
0 and lost one. -1?
Yes. -1. I mean, going into, let's be honest, we were pretty confident of the -1. We just didn't realize that they would not replace. But I have to suggest that their splash in keeping Brock and signing Brock it's hard to say it's not a win.
Yeah.
Like they were, the Vancouver Canucks won by running it back, kinda.
Yeah, and like, I don't mean to belittle. I feel like I was kind of looking down on that wanting to be here thing. Brock really wants to be here. And he hasn't wanted to be anywhere else, so.
No. Oh, but those of you who might have thought P.S. Suter would find a way to get pen to paper the Vancouver Canucks, not so much. P.S. is gone. Peace be with you.
P.S. be with you.
I actually, if you had told me going into free agency that both Boeser and Suter were gone, I would have been like, yeah, I know. I'd resign myself to that fate. I actually could not see a way for the Vancouver Canucks, short of making some trade or some crazy splash, a means to even get one of them back. Though if you had to force me to choose, I would have thought maybe Suter.
Yeah. But apparently, Canucks can see the future, and Philip Hedl will never have concussion problems again.
Yeah. Who else did the Vancouver Canucks sign in free agency? Pierre-Olivier, or
Pierre.
I think Joseph.
Yeah.
It's P.O. Joseph, but I think it's Pierre-Olivier.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Signed for a year. He's just on a sort of depth show me contract, 7th defenseman type.
But I think he's pretty highly rated as a character in the room. Good buddies with Drew Conor.
Mm-hmm. But the Vancouver Canucks got him for pennies. I think it's on like a league minimum, if I recall, which is all they could arguably afford.
Yeah.
And then they made some additional sort of splashes in regards to depth signing. Mackenzie McEachern on a 2-year contract.
Quick sidebar. What insane parent
Mac
calls their kid Mac? Like, I don't know. Is it McCarran? Whatever. However you say it.
I thought it was McEachern.
Oh, God. This is confusing. But, yeah, either way, we've got, Mackenzie, Jimmy Short, Joe LeBate back for another Canucks spin. All north of 30. Depth. But Joe LeBate, see, people want to play. People love coming back to Vancouver.
Yes. Well, speaking of that, Tyler Mott's still available.
Ooh.
Just saying.
I like Charlie Hassel. Bring him back. More Americans. Jesus.
Yeah. Noah Juleson was also gone. P.S. Suter, obviously, he's gone, but Noah Juleson made his way to Philadelphia.
Is anyone surprised? Like, the amount of rope that Noah Juleson got, like, the leash he got under Rick Tocchet. Like, I'm not crapping.
Could you imagine if Höglander got that much room to grow?
I think that's part of why I, had some resentment towards Noah Juleson, who still could be a decent defenseman, but just,
Well, here, if I were to go and describe any play, and I don't even have to be specific, Noah Juleson goes for the hit, lays out the player, opposing team goes in on a 2-on-1. How many times did Noah play himself out of position for a hit or whatever it happened to be?
Yeah.
Resulting in an odd man rush or contributing in a way that took him as a defenseman outside of the blue line. And that was never an issue. Whereas
because it was the physical play.
Simply, happened to go and get a pass through heavy traffic, but it didn't result in a goal. And apparently didn't throw the puck into the corner where it was meant to go.
And don't you think that Noah Juleson was kind of good kid, physical player type thing? And Niels Höglander, 4 years his junior, by the way, I did have to check that exact number, was just he should have learned by now how to be a professional. Yeah. Anyway, best of luck.
And, Vancouver Canucks have soured on Dakota Joshua. Apparently, last season he didn't perform the way they thought he would.
I mean, I wonder why that is.
Absolute BS. when I started reading reports that this was the case, it just blew my mind. Like, talk about a front office trying to blow smoke in the face of its fans, the opposing teams. Like, yeah, no kidding, Dakota didn't have the season you expected. Like,
the fact that he got anywhere close to returning to his best
when
after
word came out
cancer.
that he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, you and I were like, oh my goodness, like this kid, he's like, let's hope he comes back. We weren't talking, let's hope he comes back in a few months. Like, let's look for a positive prognosis. Like, this is tough. He came back. Was he the same? No. He had...
But he was getting there, right? Like, there was a progression.
Yeah. But consider, like, I'm not an oncologist.
Are you
Never
not?
claim to be one. No. But what I do know about most treatment for cancer tend to do a significant number on you and your immune system and your fitness and your health. Like, one of the many different treatment types is to kill cancer. We're going to try to kill you too. But that's because your cells are really good at coming back and cancer cells are not, hopefully.
Yeah. It's tough. And not to mention that according to Puckpedia, he's also a center. I don't remember this ever happening. I don't know if he's played at center for the Canucks, but you never know. So, fourth line center maybe?
Oh, so Dakota is a Canuck, but the only thing I can think of is that the Vancouver Canucks front office is of the opinion by putting it out there that this guy is available because they aren't too happy with his play. Their hope is that other teams will be like, oh, that front office doesn't know what they're talking about. Let's pounce on
4D
this.
chess.
I don't
really,
know.
and not to mention the fact that because of the down year, because of that recovery, I don't know really what he can gather in terms of trade value.
No. Well, this is where the 4D chess thing
isn't that much, but
is them trying to throw smoke out there as they are a way to incent teams to jump on this to quote unquote fleece the Canucks, when really what are the Canucks attempting to do? I think they're attempting to give themselves more cap flexibility in hopes that they can then use that to acquire something else, like a center who plays center.
A center that plays center. Dream big, Chris.
Yeah, that's all I can do. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, the Vancouver Canucks right now, I think, have $700,000 in cap space.
Yeah, I'm trying to
something like that.
Yeah, 800.
Okay, 800,000. Okay, and when you look down their lineup, there, I mean, we don't know what Philip Edel's.
Well, that's the thing. It could be
Philip Edel
if we assume the best.
Away. They're a center short, unless Dakota is a center in disguise. I don't know.
It would be a pretty good disguise.
Yeah, I mean.
Otherwise, yeah, it's really we are looking at Petey, Hedel, Bluga, and then one of Carlson or Orman.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe Aturatu is
true.
Magic.
There was news about him today, but I believe he will be back to start the season.
Yeah, that's sort of where you got the Vancouver Canucks in the grand scheme of things of a free agency, and then there's still players out there, as I mentioned, Tyler Mott. He's available. But he's much more expensive than what the Canucks can afford.
Yeah. I don't think he wants a league minimum contract. I don't believe.
No?
Yes. Obviously, we actually don't need to worry about centers, Chris, because we have drafted them.
That's true. So the Vancouver Canucks did not trade away their, was it 15th overall
yes.
pick?
Not for lack of trying.
Okay.
But once again, in this market where everyone's looking to put their picks on the table.
Yeah. Before we actually talk about this, Did you watch the NHL entry draft?
No, thank
All
God.
20 hours of it?
Thank God I was not available.
So if you happen to miss, I'm just going to talk about round 1. It was slow. And the piece of the entire performance that slowed it down the most was the Zoom interview, which may or may not have been Zoom.
And like for anyone that has like existed during the pandemic, you can imagine how fraught with problems those are.
Yeah, it was awkward. It felt forced. Like what we were essentially witnessing was the conversation that likely happens with drafted player and those who attend the draft in person in past years that we wouldn't necessarily bear witness to until the team pumped out its own, video promotional type content. Instead, we got to watch the interview happen because again, it wasn't it was a decentralized draft. All the teams were still
they were in their own huddle and
places.
And the thing was, how was it somehow worse than the COVID draft, which took many hours as well, but it was less awkward because no one, you did see like the reactions on delay from the people, but it was somehow less awkward than this.
Yeah. But the one thing I did like about sort of how the draft process adjusted somewhat is in past years, it was always you'd have the, variety of, suits up on the stage, and occasionally someone other than maybe someone in the front office would make the pick. I did appreciate how teams were given the flexibility to have someone of their choosing be involved.
It was a cool idea.
Yeah, I hope that can live through whatever it was we had to live through.
I was kind of
in the future.
Funny that like nothing says you were hoping to trade away your pick than Mikael Samuelsson being the Canucks ambassador.
Well, okay, so I was going to get there
because I was just
talk
like,
about how like
what happened?
The Boston Bruins had Adam Sandler do it, and
had Dave Coulier. The Wings had Coulier. Anaheim Ducks had Joshua Jackson. That's pretty cool. We could have had Joshua Jackson.
So, do you know who Joshua Jackson's, favorite team is?
I bet it's Anaheim just because of the Mighty Ducks thing.
The Vancouver Canucks.
Well, I mean, he's a Vancouver kid, right?
He is. He is on the record of being a Vancouver Canucks, supporter,
right?
Supporter, fan, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, the Ducks connection.
Yes.
But
yeah, I'm sure we could have got Bublé at the very least.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Or Reynolds
lives down there, doesn't he?
Yeah,
No, Ryan Reynolds was getting his Order of Canada up in Ottawa.
Anyway.
He was.
Yeah,
He might have been in North America.
We could easily have gotten Bublé, but
we could have Ryan Gosling down there.
He's from Ontario.
Whatever.
Okay.
He filmed a bunch of stuff out there.
Everyone's filmed a bunch of stuff out here.
So okay, off the rails. Someone had made a comment about their favorite Canadian Ryans, and they had listed 4 of them. Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling. There was another Ryan, and I can't remember who it was, but then someone the name was recognizable, and then someone had to ask, who's the 4th Ryan? And the person replies, Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion? Well, Nathan Fillion apparently played a character named Ryan in something.
In something. How specific?
Therefore, I can't remember the specifics, but that qualified him as a Ryan. And I kid you not, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that adds up. Nathan Fillion, favorite Ryan.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who the other Ryan would be. Although, if you were born of a certain vintage in Canada, you're either named Chris or Ryan, correct?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
In fact, so it's still off the rails. My elementary school best friend when I was growing up was both.
Yeah.
I knew him as Ryan, but his first name was
there
Christopher.
You go.
Yeah. So, Vancouver Canucks held on to number 15, and can't say I know a lot about Braden Coots, but based on what little I have heard since his draft, I'm not entirely disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, Canucks clearly throughout the draft had a focus on centers. I wonder why that is. But yeah, seems like a decent pick. Edmonton kid, played on Seattle, like thrived in a weak Seattle team, so which is what you want to see.
He was apparently the Vancouver Canucks target. This is, again, the team that elected not to be part of the draft combine in any
Which
substantial way.
Was insane and collectively regarded by everyone else as insane.
Well, insane, but also reinforced the belief that the team had no intention of keeping that first round pick.
Yeah.
Why spend time and effort when
Apparently. And Francesco said, I'm not sending you to the draft combine if you don't need to be there.
Yeah, right. Gotta save those pennies. Their second round pick got a goaltender. Can never have too many of those. Alexei Medvedev.
Yeah, once again. That's pretty high for a goalie, but yeah, we'll take it.
Kieran Dervin in third round. Wilson Bjork in the fifth round. Gabriel Shiro in the sixth. And Matthew Lansing in the seventh. None of those are Petterssons, and there were a couple on the board, so...
Yeah, that's true. But do you know who that is? It's Gabe Sherratt, as in he is Ben Sherratt's cousin.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay, well,
yeah.
A little, First of all, I barely made it to Braden's pick
as in
on Friday.
You were like, I'm done.
Oh,
yeah,
God,
I mean, luckily was not watching, but tracking it all.
It took an hour to go through like the first four.
Yeah.
They
had to
teams.
Fly Lightning McQueen or whatever the kid's name was to Disney.
Yeah,
insane.
Yes. That's the other thing you have to look up is there was the Lightning. It's not Lightning McQueen. It's something McQueen, and he got to meet Lightning McQueen, but they quite literally flew him from the draft to.
Okay, so also quick sidebar. I understand why people don't want to go there with who Lightning McQueen is actually named after. Like presumably Steve McQueen, Rebel Without a Cause.
Okay. Yeah.
But he did die in a car crash, so it's Disney being pretty effing dark.
Well, is it Disney or was it Pixar? Is that a Pixar?
Yes, Disney, Pixar. But yes, Pixar do have more of a history with the smarter, darker side of things.
Disney has Deadpool, and
Disney has a lot of things these days.
They've acquired things that aren't necessarily quote unquote Disney.
Yeah.
I mean, collectively, I think the Vancouver Canucks didn't do too badly at the draft. I'm still jaded from the Jim Benning era where they did well identifying sort of good, solid first-round picks. Arguably struggled beyond that. But in fairness, they didn't have too many beyond the first round, and often they didn't have their first round to pick.
Yeah.
But if anything, Braden Coots runs faster than the Sedins up the grouse grind.
Yeah.
Just barely.
Yeah,
needed a 10-minute head start.
Put in brackets 10-minute head start. Yeah. It's just so insane how they continue to thrive.
Again, another thing if you hadn't heard. And maybe there's listeners who don't know this. So the Vancouver Canucks, after every entry draft, they run a development camp. They essentially bring all of their draft picks who can make the trip to Vancouver. They invite a lot of the younger players. And they have sort of a quick, I think it's about a 3-day camp here at Vancouver. And the camp always ends off with a run-up grouse mountain, the grouse grind. If you've never been to Vancouver, the grouse grind is essentially a mountain trail that takes you from base to not the peak, but pretty high up
Grass Mountain. It's not a nice thing to do. It's steep, it's covered in trees, so you don't really get a good view at any point. It's extremely busy a lot of the time. But it's also something you have to do at least once if you live in the Lower Mainland.
I've never done it. I've never done it once. I've lived here all my life. I have no, as I've described this to people who've asked me, I have no desire to be highlighted on the evening news scene helicopter off the side of a mountain.
I've done it. I've done it twice. Both times I did not enjoy it. I have no desire to do it again.
I did not enjoy it for you, having just learned you've done it twice.
Yeah, I got tricked into it once. I thought we were going for beers after work.
Well, you could quite literally grab a beer.
We
up at
did,
the top
but
once it's
yeah,
done.
you know, I wasn't told that the beer was at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, you just had to get there to drink it. So yeah, the grouse grind, essentially it's a, hey, young kids who know nothing about Vancouver, we're going to race up the top. And, you know, these young kids full of, you know, hormones, because they're young, figure they can take on the world. And they learn I quite liked how the social media team does this is me before the grouse grind. And then it's this is me after the grouse grind. Like, you can
they are
see
dead
how some of
inside.
the players,
Yeah.
There's a few who are like, you know, conditioned well enough to deal with that sort of type of marathon type experience.
But it's very much people like taking off at sprints and then very much realizing they cannot keep that up.
Yeah. And then there are those who think that old men and Daniel and Henrik Sedin, who aren't machines and unnatural beings in their own right, can somehow run faster than them. It's like, oh no, I'm totally getting 10-minute head start, and Daniel almost caught up to Brady.
Yeah, I mean, they're incredible.
But the others got beat.
Daniel, I mean, it was post-retirement that he did his whole 11 times in a day thing, right?
Yeah, it was like it was a race or a charity thing or something.
Yeah, and the Sun Run this year, they both beasted it, of course.
Yeah, they're unnatural.
Yeah, incredible conditioning, but like definitely good examples for the young prospects.
Yeah. Anyhow, I would imagine the Vancouver Canucks are probably going to take a breather. Not that they really wore themselves out in free agency or the draft. I say that, and who knows, they'll maybe make a big splash tomorrow, and you and I will be back in a couple of weeks to talk about it. But before we dive into our next segment to talk about the trade, you and I are going to take a short break. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
Where were you when the Vancouver Canucks decided it was a bright idea to help Edmonton out by trading for Evander Kane? And when I say helping Edmonton out, they took a contract off of Edmonton's books that allowed Edmonton cap flexibility to go and do stuff come free agency. Edmonton retained zero. The Canucks gave up a fourth round pick
Which
for
much
former
less.
Vancouver Giant local boy Evander Kane. Where were you when that went down?
Well, I can tell you exactly where I was because, so it was the day after we recorded. I did not engage. Usually I would at least check Twitter, Blue Sky, social media in the morning. I was not doing that because I was on YouTube watching a cricket game. So, was not checking anything else. And then I get to work and a coworker says, "Have you seen the news?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Look it up for yourself."
Okay, before you did, were you thinking Petey got traded?
No.
Okay. Because if it's look at the news.
I kind of assumed it might be Brock related. Or at least, rumors or something. But yeah, I really didn't expect what happened to happen.
Yeah, okay, well, first of all, I don't think anyone in a million years had expected that the Vancouver Canucks would go and trade for Evander Kane. But they did.
They did. the return, who cares? Like, it's a 4th round, like,
No,
and that's fine, worth a swing. It's
if
yeah,
it's Evander Kane.
that's the problem. It's not like just a swing. Like, one, $5 million per year, even though it's 1 year, is a lot of a swing. 2, he old. Only for a hockey player, not for a person, but he's 34 years old. But so that in itself, you'd think, that was an interesting choice, helping Edmonton out like that. But the issue is far deeper. It's much more the fact that Canucks have this very fragile piece in their locker room. Huge problem player in terms of the culture, shipped out last season. And into that, you are introducing Evander Kane, not to mention what the trade says to the fan base, especially, young women.
Yeah. So if I break it down a number of different ways, let's focus first on just the pure hockey aspect of it. The Vancouver Canucks acquired a flyer of a player for a 4th round pick, which in a vacuum, you'd be like, okay, you're taking a sort of low risk, high reward opportunity. Yeah. An expensive one, in the fact that when the deal went down, whether you liked Kane or not, the $5-ish million was cap space you thought the team would be utilizing to go and make a splash in free agency. But at worst was, okay, I guess Brock Boeser's gone for certain because you just went and got Kane. Now, the problem with the way they approach this, and there are some who subscribe to the theory that the team had moved on from Brock, decided they needed a replacement, thought this might work, we'll get a player, could give us what Brock was giving us, might not, but hey, if it doesn't, it's a 1 year and we move on. And then suddenly decided, let's actually get Brock too. Okay, well, whatever. But then let's expand this from the hockey player part. Let's start looking at the fact that the hockey player has had some issues in the room. Like, this is not us making it up. And having seen what issues in the room were like last season, we saw them move on JT Miller. And whether you were pro Petey or pro Miller, the majority, I think, had to accepted that one of the two needed to go for peace. And so why would you have done that deal only to then potentially bring a new issue in?
And we will get into the off-ice stuff, or the extra, stuff that's outside of hockey, with a trigger warning for that discussion. But first to say, the stuff that's happened within, his behavior as a hockey player, what we do know, he has submitted a fake vaccine card to the league and was banned for 20-plus games for that. That's such a huge trust issue, besides what it says about his views on health, healthcare, and community health, the NHL being that community. That's such a massive red flag. We know he's had gambling issues in the past.
I will provide not a discount, but I will provide a pass because I view gambling as any form of addiction.
Yes, and I agree with that. I do think it's something that should be, an issue that should receive support, not censure. But, there were stories. Now we don't know if these are true, that he was betting on hockey, which is very much banned, betting on his own games. Again, none of those have been substantiated, so we don't know. But, let's just say that adds to his volatility and maybe the caution with which you'd approach this player. And not to mention, talk about hockey. He hasn't played in basically hasn't played in a year.
I was gonna say, he totally played last year.
Also, lost the Stanley Cup final and didn't come out of the room for handshakes. Most recently, we are seeing issues.
I talked to a friend of mine who's a big Oilers fan, and I had said, I'm like, I better get a Christmas card from you this year on behalf of the Oilers because of us taking Evander Kane. And her response was that she actually felt Evander had started to change as maturity goes at Edmonton, but could not for a million years understand why why Edmonton did not retain.
Yeah, it just seems like a massive favor. And, maturity, he's in his mid-30s, he's about to turn 34.
Evander Kane's contract came with it, was it this number of team no trade list? I can't remember how many. And the teams that were, Vancouver was one of the teams he was willing to go to, but of the teams he was willing to go to, apparently there was only one team entertaining the conversation.
Yeah, that story from Dollywall really says it all. That no team would take that risk of the personality. And we talked about why they would do it. Why they're doing it is, what if he is the person that reignites PD? I think it's...
Do you think Evander is a Team PD player?
I do not. Yeah. But they're taking a risk because they're thinking, we've got to put our best foot forward with PD,
So, not that we have a lotto line, but that's the missing piece of a lotto line.
Do you think we're allowed to have the lotto line now that Rick Tockett's gone?
I don't know.
It was banned under Rick, so when he said, when it happened by accident, he said, that's not happening again.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Heaven forbid you put a number of players who seem to play well together out on the ice at the same time.
Yeah. Heaven forbid the fans have fun. And, that's where I'd like to move on to in the sort of fan reaction part. And again, we're going to, right here, discuss some sensitive issues. Evander Kane has a series of accusations behind him that are incredibly serious. And they range from sexual assault to domestic abuse. And these are repeated. And once again, they are accusations. They are not proven. Be very clear on that.
Anna, innocent until proven guilty.
Which is a legal standard. As anyone that listens to this podcast is hopefully aware, that is a legal standard, not a social standard. Yes, people may point to, as someone did on Twitter to me, that, he got custody of his daughter. There's no way he would get that if there were any truth to the accusations. I will say that he walks through life with an incredible amount of privilege. And just because things were not able to be proven in court, that doesn't mean that he is not guilty of them. And once again, not guilty is not the same as innocent, as we have also discussed at length. But yeah, it's just a huge, not to mention the locker room volatility. It's just a slap in the face of Canucks fans, I think.
Well, there are some out there that would disagree.
Yeah, and there are some out there.
There are fans out there that would tell you, Anna, this is the player that the Vancouver Canucks have needed. He's going to provide them the grit that they need.
I mean, but how has that worked out in the past?
So if it was grit and sandpaper, it had actually worked out great. But do you, for me, if we think in the context of balance of probabilities, the Vancouver Canucks have taken on a significant amount of risk and potential for disruption, more so than what they might get as potential, benefit.
Yeah, it's a huge risk, and almost every reporter, the take has been, why would you do it? Not that it's not, definitely not going to work out, but why would you take that risk given all the Canucks have gone through, and given that their strategy is things went wrong last year with injuries and etc. So we're just going to roll with the same group again and it will get better. Given that that's their strategy.
It's and actually to even sort of narrow this further, if we remove, whether we shouldn't, but let's say we remove all of the off ice issues, this deal doesn't make sense in the context of the Vancouver Canucks. It introduces the etc.
Yeah.
Like all the etc. that was the problem, that is this. That is the etc.
Like, yeah. It's just like, if you are really running with the same group, pretty much, you need to make sure every other sort of variable is covered. And
injuries are an issue. This is a kid who was injured.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's not... people recover from injuries all the time, but...
Yeah. Once again, he's in his 30s. Like, he is, like... only a couple months younger than me. Yeah.
And we know how old you are.
Very old. And like Botch said, 30 is old. So 34 is definitely old.
Oh, so if 30 is old, what does that make me?
Well, I believe Botch was also older than 30 when he made that claim.
Yeah, I think I'm older than... I would have been older than Botch now.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. Oh, anyhow, it's hard sometimes to be a Canucks fan, Anna.
Yeah.
I've been a Canucks fan for a long time. It's never actually been easy. It's always been hard. Even in the good times, it's been hard.
I actually, funnily enough, earlier this evening did talk to a local business owner who said, yeah, last year was better for us, like, weirdly, business-wise, because they are near to the stadium, so yeah, it's not good for business either.
Yeah. Anywho, who knows what'll happen over the course of the next couple of weeks. It seems every time we record an episode, big news drops before I even hit the publish button on the show. So, yeah, you and I'll be back in 2 weeks' time to talk all about that. In the lead up, though, if you were wanting to support the show, you've reached this point, you're like, hey, Anna and Chris should probably go and drown their sorrows or celebrate the successes with a pint or two. You can buy us a pint by going to buymeacoffee.com/C4podcast, or as I've alluded to, and Anna will tell you, it is called
Buy Me a Pint.
And you can do that either on a one-off basis, or if you elect to support us monthly or annually. Not only do we have your love and appreciation, and we will celebrate you on upcoming shows, you get access to C4 Off the Rails, the semi-regularly published bonus episode, which I've come to realize I don't think I've published the last two again because I am lazy.
So lazy.
I'm sorry. But I'll publish them. Look at the 3 in a row. There's always episodes. We record them. It's just do I publish them. But I do eventually get around to it. Much better during a regular season. So you get access to that. And as well, if you wanted to support the show and, financially it's just not possible, we completely get it. The best way you can do is just, talk about us online, social media, tell your friends about us, tell your family about us. We are the longest running Vancouver Canucks podcast for a reason. It's because my mom and your mom...
Yeah.
Listen, well, your mom does. My mom doesn't. Hi, Anna's mom.
Hi, Mom.
Love you.
I love you too. Put it in skywriting. That's another option.
Yeah, we know that Vancouver Canucks fans will crowdfund banners that can be dragged behind planes. So
there you
go. Yeah. Any words of wisdom this week, Anna?
About 20 to 25 minutes ago during the recording, I got my lace stuck in a chair, so I've just had to keep adjusting because...
I was curious what was going on, but I didn't...
Yeah, because I would also forget about it and then try and move, and then realize, no, I am stuck to the chair. So, yeah, that's my fun fact.
I don't have any, words of wisdom this episode. Didn't really actually think to create any, and I'm kind of at a loss because I'm tired. So maybe my words of wisdom are sleep more.
Sleep is good.
Yeah, it is. But on behalf of Anna, E4603, myself, Chris at Light Forest, and the podcast known by many different names on different social media platforms, we out.